AK Kamara, and I'm going to take you on a 2 hour tour with our other two co hosts, Drew Outstanding and David Webster. This podcast is about being able to connect what I think is important and culturally relevant, along with my two co hosts, with Minnesota, but having also a national flavor, sometimes international flavor. But I think it's important that we can truly understand that we now live in a world where culture is downstream from politics, but we need to understand what is culturally relevant. And so ultimately, that's what we're going to try and accomplish within this podcast every single week. We're going to be joined pretty often with a guest, but today we are just going to be the three of us amigos rolling through what is culturally relevant, what's going on. Before we get started, make sure that you guys hit the like button on whatever platform you're watching this on, whether you're watching this on X, on YouTube, on Facebook, and make sure that you share the link, because if you don't share, no one sees what we're actually putting out there. And make sure to leave some comments, because throughout the show, we're going to address any comments or questions that you guys have as we continue to grow this. So let me just kind of first start off. How you gentlemen been? Last week, I had the privilege of visiting Washington, D.C., and specifically going to the vice president's residence, which I'll be honest was, I don't know, like it's a surreal moment. You know, I got to go to the vice president's residence, which in and of itself is super cool. And so I got to be there with about 250 other members of the Republican National Committee, their plus ones, some members of the RNC, and then Vice President J.D. Vance and Second Lady Usha. And then President Donald Trump crashed the party. So I got to see President Donald Trump. I was like literally, 8 feet away from him. And a couple times we locked eyes, and I knew that he saw my American flag hat, and I could tell that he approved of it. But yeah, so that's how my week has went, and I wasn't able to join the show last week. But Drew, how was your week, man?
Excellent. Drew Outstanding here. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to have a blast. I'm a veteran advocate, combat deployed veteran, retired now, and just trying to get out the message and have some awesome conversations. Yeah, just been a busy weekend. Looking forward to get going.
And what about you, David? Anything fun, interesting that you're able to participate in since we last chatted?
Yeah, absolutely. David Webster here, and like Drew, I'm also a retired, or well, not retired, but a former military member, um, legal immigrant, proud American, and I'm excited to the conversations that we get to have here on the channel. And absolutely, this weekend was a little action packed for me. Actually, I got to go to a pretty special concert. It happens every year. We talked about it a little bit in the last episode with the Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge. It's this large organization that helps with drug and alcohol recovery, not taking any state or federal money. They're a faith-led organization. They run entirely on donations, and you get to go and hear a Christmas concert from all of their up-and-coming graduates. And it's next level when you hear people that have come from some of the darkest darkness and found their faith. And you hear them singing anything praise and worship, whether it's Christmas themed or whatever. It's incredible. So that was a highlight of the weekend for sure.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Just also a little thing that I did as well, kind of that goes along in that kind of same vein. Like, politics is important, and I actually said it backwards. I said that culture is downstream of politics, the other way around. Politics is downstream from culture, and I think that one thing that is culturally relevant is to be tied into your community. So in the same way that you went to go support the people that are part of Minnesota Teen Challenge, I actually am a member of the Lions, and the day that I flew back from Washington, D.C., in Hugo, we have a senior Christmas party. And so what we do is we invite anyone in the community that's over the age of 55, and we provide them with a meal, entertainment. We have door prizes. We usually have some type of wine or alcoholic beverage, just to say thank you to the people that have helped to build the communities that we live in. I think that too often, especially in this day and age, like we forget, like those that are our elders have built literally the communities that we live in, whether they built it by working or volunteering or serving in some way, shape, or form, raising children, being teachers. Just their little piece and their contribution to that society, I think, is important to, at least once a year get together and say thank you for being a part of our community. So we're going to talk about a handful of topics tonight, hopefully get through all four of them. We're going to talk about what's going on right now with Minneapolis. There is a current ICE operation along with Homeland Security, and Department of Homeland Security, I should say. And that's called Operation, what is it? Metropolitan Surge. It's stupid. I hate the name, by the way, but that's basically the surge that's happening right now in Minneapolis to go after the folks that are in this country without legal permission. So we're going to talk about that because there was some action today that, to me, I think needs to have a broader conversation. We're also going to chat about, of course, the horrific news coming out of Australia of the Bondi Beach. It seems that it's all but confirmed it's a terrorist attack. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. More or less, what are those ramifications? I think that all three of us have probably an interesting perspective because of our age about the global war on terror. And sometimes I think people forget that there are people that want to murder us that are all across this globe. We're also going to talk about Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle, being horrifically and tragically murdered. And it looks like the suspect so far right now is their own son. Kind of talk about how that has been hitting really the entire culture, whether we're talking about online or news stories, about reactions that I guess people are having. And then kind of end things on a light note / horrifying note, depending on your perspective, is the potential for some pole shifting action. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. But we've been having a lot of, northern light storms, and I think that there is something larger afoot, or maybe it's just the way that the universe works. So we'll have a little bit of a discussion about that. So kind of, again, to kind of kick things off, first things first, again, we have this Operation Metro Surge that's been going on. It really kind of got started. There probably was planning before it. I think sometimes what happens is you'll have the government actually working on an operation, and then something will be relevant that will happen in news. And then it's like, oh, by the way, we've already had this operation ready to go, and now we're going to launch it. So all across the United States, since the Trump administration came into power, they have been targeting different cities and localities with operations to get rid of illegal aliens, along with enforce the law and use federal resources in certain states. Nashville has had an operation going on. Down in New Orleans, they've had an operation going on. Washington, D.C. has had an operation going on. And Minneapolis finally got on the map with our own operation. So far, my understanding is that we've had about 400 arrests. And kind of the key thing that kicked it off was this bombshell report that we talked about on 2 previous episodes, that there's all this fraud that's happening with a lot of people that are in this country that came from Somalia and also from some other nations as well. And so that was kind of like the kickoff point. But since then, we've had different skirmishes, different kind of clashes, if you will. And what has been happening is you have these NGOs and other nonprofit organizations that are, in my opinion, Marxist, that will communicate with each other. And if they see that there's an ICE action going on, they basically send out an email blast, text message blast, phone calls, and they tell people to show up and to stop ICE from being able to do their job. And so in South Minneapolis today, it was reported that such a mob showed up of rioters, which I'm calling them, and they actually were assaulting and attacking ICE agents in South Minneapolis. And so I'm going to see here. Andrew, if you want to pull up the first link. If not, I can try pulling it up myself on my end. The first I think it's both of them are my posts, but just to be able to provide a little bit of context. So basically, my understanding is that ICE, again, showed up for some type of enforcement action. Word got out in the street, and a violent mob showed up and tried stopping ICE from being able. So yeah, here we go. Rioters swarmed and attacked ICE agents in South Minneapolis earlier today. And I said, enough is enough. Send in federal resources, and if necessary, invoke the Insurrection Act. Federal agents must be able to enforce the laws of our nation. So I just want to kick it over to you, Drew. Kind of from your perspective, what do you think with these enforcement actions, and specifically like in this case, you have, this group of, 100, 200 people showing up trying to stop ICE from doing their job?
Yeah, it's wild, the amount of organizations and just how organized they are when it comes to this stuff that's happening. It should be, just a normal operation. I guess we say operation, but it's just wild that like something like this is going on, and then they get people to stop that. You don't see this with police or firefighters or stuff like that. I mean, maybe at certain times, but yeah, it's just wild the state that we're in related to how different agencies are able to fully function. And then now it seems like it's getting more and more closer to this civil war that people are talking about. It's a modern day civil war where you have these just I don't know how to say it better than like insurgents, an insurgency, or I don't want to say the wrong kind of terminology, but
Sure.
it's groups that are fighting against our government agencies. I don't know how else to describe that.
Yeah. What about you, David?
I mean, I think
yeah.
you hit the nail on the head there with that. I mean, it's essentially insurgency, and interfering with a federal officer conducting whatever it is that their duty is, it is a crime. And the double-sided issue to this that we have is then you have all the mainstream media, all the legacy media coming around and saying that ICE is arresting or detaining, deporting American citizens, which is blatantly false. They are arresting people that are interfering with operations because that's a federal offense. You can stand there, you can protest, but the minute you put hands on somebody, you try to block them trying to escort somebody that they've detained to a vehicle. Now you're interfering. Like it's no different than like a local homicide being investigated, and you hide evidence from the police. You're going to
Yeah,
get charged with obstruction of justice. It's the same thing.
it's due process. Just like if you're pulled over on the highway by a local police officer, state patrol, whatever, you there's not much you can do. You go along with whatever they're saying, and then you figure out your due process after that. Otherwise, it's not going to go well for anybody. You figure it out after the fact. So, yeah, I don't really get this whole clashing on the street.
Yeah. I
And
think
of course, their immediate jump is to make it racial. But I don't know about you, AK, but when I've been pulled over a couple times. I had a bit of a lead foot in my 20s. I never got treated poorly by law enforcement. I was raised to yes sir, yes ma'am. Hand them my ID, not make a scene. And I've always left those interactions well. A couple of times I got a speeding ticket or something, but I deserved it. Nothing racially hostile ever happened to me. I don't know if your experience is different. You could speak to that at all, but I think the jump to that is ridiculous that they're bringing that back around, thinking we're gonna jump into believing that all over again.
Yeah, I mean, my personal experience, like I've been pulled over plenty of times. For honestly, like every single time I've been pulled over, it's because I was doing something wrong. Whether I was speeding a little bit too much, whether it was because like I was a passenger in a vehicle where someone was just driving like a jack wagon and we got pulled over. But as long as you comply, I mean, 99% of the time, you're going to be just fine. And it's funny because, this narrative will get pushed that if you're black in America and you get pulled over, you should be fearful for your life. I've been pulled over several times while carrying a firearm. Minnesota, now check your state laws to make sure that this is what it is. But in Minnesota, you don't actually have to notify that you have a firearm unless law enforcement asks you. Or they ask you to get out of the vehicle, then you have to inform them that you are carrying. And, verbiage matters, and they kind of teach a lot of the stuff in the permit to carry classes. But yeah, I've never been shot by a cop because I had a firearm. But people have this deranged idea. But so to your point, though, when they try and racialize this stuff and they say, well, they're profiling people and all these different things, it's utterly bogus. So in this case, again, talking about Minneapolis, the way that I've seen this, because listen, I think it's important to try and find a way to push back against the narratives that the legacy media is pushing. And so I try and do that a lot on my X page. And so I'll read a story and then I'll see like the sensational headline and it will say, ICE arrests employee. You do some digging. Who is the employee? Oh, an illegal alien who had a deportation order from 2018, meaning that a judge already signed off saying this person doesn't qualify for staying in this country for any reason, whether they applied for asylum or some other reason, and now they have an order to be deported. It's just no one was enforcing it. And so when they say an employee was detained by ICE, people think, oh, this is an American citizen. Or you read a story like just happened with Ilhan Omar's son, that he was pulled over and he was asked to show his ID and proof of citizenship. And why did that happen? My understanding, and maybe more information will come up, but my understanding, it's because he was acting erratic around an ICE operation, shouting things at the ICE agents. And so here's what they realize. People that interfere with ICE operations and then they try and run away, it's usually because they don't have legal permission to be here. That's what ICE has found, not just in Minnesota, but across the country. And so I think it's important to, again, kind of put all of these things in their proper perspective and understand what the media is trying to do, what Democrats in this instance are trying to do, because they are completely against this idea of enforcing our borders and enforcing our laws when it comes to immigration. But again, back to this story in Minneapolis, I said, I think that President Trump, if this is what it's going to be, that a mob of people can show up and they can stop immigration officers from enforcing the federal law, especially when they have deportation orders, you cannot, as a functioning government, just allow that to stand. You can't just back down when you're the federal government. And that's why I'm not saying that we should do this and that President Trump should do this, but the Insurrection Act is on the table. So I'm just curious, from both of your perspective, if the Insurrection Act was invoked, is that something that you think is a step too far in this case? I'm just genuinely curious because I'm at a point where I'm like, screw it, man. Invoke the Insurrection Act, start arresting these people, and allow the federal government to do their job because this is what we voted for.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm just wondering, what would it take to kind of get to that point? And you just kind of said it. Yeah, why not? If it makes sense for this kind of situation, predicament that we're in, basically, what are the options? And obviously, the Insurrection Act is relevant, and there's got to be people out there that, well, federal government, the ICE and everything like that, they have to have plans to figure out what they're going up against, what they plan on doing. And then, I just really got to see what these options are and, like, why not play them out? And the one of the obstacles in this is working with the local jurisdictions, populations, when it comes to that. And being in Minnesota, being in Hennepin County, being in Minneapolis, whatever it is, are they fighting back? Or are the police having their back when it comes to this stuff? I'm just being that military planning mindset when you're working with different units, when you're working with different jurisdictions, you would think if an operation is going on, everyone would be talking and then hopefully not bumping into heads with each other at the same time. So I'm wondering what the issue is.
You know, dude, here's the crazy part, right? To that point, Minnesota, they have I'll say it this way. Functionally, we're not, I'd say technically we're not considered a sanctuary state, but functionally we kind of are. You kind of have this like look the other way type of mentality with a lot of public safety. You're not seeing state troopers being deployed to provide asset and intel on most of these deportation orders. And 100% in the city of Minneapolis and in the city of St. Paul, they have explicitly stated in their charters for their city that there's no cooperation or coordination when it comes to deportation with federal agencies. So in my opinion, are creating a dangerous situation because, like you just said, Drew, you need to have coordination. When you have an operation, you need as much intel as possible to not only safely grab who your target is, but also to protect the rest of the community. And when you have a lack of information, you're going to do the best that you can. But just imagine that. Local law enforcement, specifically the police of Minneapolis and St. Paul, explicitly cannot coordinate on any deportation orders with ICE. The only thing that sometimes they'll show up to do is provide support. And in this case that just happened in Minneapolis, the rumor is that Katie Blackwell, the same woman who got up and lied on the stand as a Minneapolis police officer about George Floyd and specifically Derek Chauvin's maximal restraint technique, that knee on the shoulder, she lied about that. She's still in power, and she gave the order to tell the Minneapolis police today to actually go back. What is it? Not what is it called? A retreat. She called a retreat. So they showed up on the scene. They saw this mob, and typically you'll have, because they have the numbers, right? Minneapolis police would kind of set up a perimeter so the protesters have some distance and the rioters have distance from ICE as they do their operation, again, without coordination. But she was like, well, this is too volatile. No life is potentially going to be lost, so pull back and retreat. Katie Blackwell allegedly did that today. So to your point, that's
Yeah.
where it's at. And I'm curious, David, like
That's tantamount to treason. I mean,
Right?
you got at some point you got to call it what it is. Like you're not prioritizing American citizens. You're not prioritizing the public good, serving the public trust or the well-being in this country. In my opinion, she shouldn't have a job anymore. She shouldn't have had a job when the lying came out. But it's one of those unfortunate things we seem to see where even when the truth comes out, there's this level of pacificity in the general population where we don't get upset enough to vote differently. I mean, we saw it with the Trump election, the second term here, that people actually got upset enough to do something about it. But we need to maintain that momentum because we have somebody else in the White House, but a lot of our local politics, a lot of our local leadership is the people that created the mess that we're in now. They're still the ones there. And so, the response needs to be huge when it comes to voting in the people that we vote in and voting on the where the money is being spent in this state and things like that. As far as the Insurrection Act goes, I'm kind of at a place where I want to live in some peace and quiet. I don't know if you have the same kind of mentality, Drew, but like I deployed, I was in the military. I don't want that in my backyard. I'd like to, have peaceful
It's
mornings.
already at our front door, though.
Yeah, but
we can
you know what I
walk in
mean?
one
Like,
hand. Yeah.
like
I know,
I'm
but-
saying, like I would, if the Insurrection Act is what it takes to bring that level of peace and quiet back, fine.
Okay. I thought you were taking it the other way. It's like, yeah, I want peace.
No, I'm
and
saying
nothing.
that's where
I
I'm
hear
at
you.
now. Is
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. Like, what will it take? Like, what's the order of operations, and are we at that point yet? And so it's really got to come to something because this stuff is just continually to escalate all year long. What President Trump's been in for almost a year now, and it's going so slow, but a lot has been done in a year. You know what I mean? And so it's just like I feel like there's 3 more years of a lot bad that can happen. A lot of good I think is going to happen, but the risk right now is like, wow, there could be 3 more years of just hostility. Not to mention leading up to the midterms.
Yeah, and I just want to throw out, we do have a public chatter. So thank you for the chat from Jesse. Oh, God, I'm not surprised. He's such a horrible leader. And I think that's in regards to Katie Blackwell. And again, remember, so before the George Floyd, or I should say, I always say George Floyd trial. He wasn't on trial. He died from overdose. From the Derek Chauvin trial, Katie Blackwell, I think, was like a commander or something like that. And she got promoted after her performance and throwing Derek Chauvin and the other officers under the bus. She got promoted to, I believe, deputy chief. I believe she's a deputy chief in the Minneapolis Police Department. And not to mention, she tried suing Liz Collin and Alpha News for defamation for saying that they lied about her. And she lost that lawsuit. And the judge, in fact, threw it out and said, Liz Collin and Alpha News, they told the truth. Or at least they didn't lie. And so it's amazing that she's this person that gets interjected back in, making a horrible decision as a leader. Like, here's the deal. Minneapolis police, I get it. I completely disagree with the idea that they're not going to help coordinate because they should know the people in their community better, right? Like, just being completely honest, like from a strategic standpoint, do federal agents have better relationships with the community, or do local law enforcement always does? But at least have them protect the rest of the community. And when an angry mob shows up and a violent mob shows up and they start throwing things at officers and it's about to be chaos, because federal officers, if they feel their life is threatened, they have the right to use lethal force. You don't want it to escalate to that point. You don't. So I think the idea of pulling back and calling for a retreat is just gutless leadership. And that's, of course, who Katie Blackwell has shown to be. It seems over and over again. She has no courage and she is gutless. And that's kind of my feelings on that. So I just want to also throw out there another chat. She's a horrible military leader as well. So it sounds like our chatter Jesse has some experience with that. So yeah, terrible all the way around. We could talk probably about this issue over and over again, but we got some other topics we want to jump to, things that have happened, and I'm going to kick it over to Drew to kind of give us a breakdown on this whole Rob Reiner horrifying, tragic killing of him and his wife.
Yeah, no problem. So we got the post millennial right here breaking Rob and Michelle Reiner's son. So this is an update. I'll get into it too, but I'll read over the update right now. Rob and Michelle's Reiner's son Nick is in custody after parents found with their throats slit in L.A. home. And so then just under here it says Nick Reiner will be held for a $4 million bail. Let me make this a little bit bigger. So she said. All right. Movie director Rob Reiner, as well as his wife, were found stabbed to death in their Brentwood home in California, and authorities are looking into their son, Nick Reiner, as a person of interest in the killings. Yeah, the articles, kind of being careful. Basically, they were found like this, and their son is a suspect. So he has been taken into custody and being held for $4 million bail. According to TMZ, Nick Reiner was in the custody of the LA County Sheriff's Department as of Monday morning. His parents, Rob Reiner and Michelle Reiner, were found with their throats slit in their home. Reiner, 78. So it just goes into Princess Bride. So yeah, Rob Reiner, big into Hollywood for a long time now. Movies like Princess Bride, A Few Good Men. What else? There's just a long list of them. We can talk about that as
Wolf
well.
of Wall Street. Yeah.
Yep, that was one of the bigger ones in recent future. So yeah, I mean, a lot on X are talking about this right now, especially when it comes to culture stuff, entertainment, but then it also jumps into political as well. Rob Reiner has been known to be on the left side of a lot of political issues, a lot of bashing of Republicans, Trump specifically. So there's been a lot of back and forth. I will just go ahead and say that, I am always on the side of nobody should be murdered, killed in that kind of sense. If there's, not a specific reason, self-defense orders, stuff like that. And that wasn't anything like this at all. So they were brutally slain in their home. Two people with, just at the end of 78 years old and 68. Like, they put in a lot on this earth, and now we are figuring out why this came to this. And I also heard earlier that they made a movie about their son, or he made a movie about their son related to this stuff. And so we'll figure out if it's more into drugs, addiction, things like that. But obviously this individual had a lot of stuff going on. And yeah, let's just dive into that. David, what do you know about this, or what can you say related to the story?
I think the biggest thing is just the tragedy of what addiction to things like drugs and alcohol can do, and it kind of highlights going back to like why I went to the concert I went to over the weekend. There was a period in my life after the military where I probably would have ended up being one of those graduates if I didn't have the family that I had around me at the time, and the people of faith that I had around me at the time, just to help me kind of navigate the darkness I was going through. And it's really unfortunate to see, what that can do to a family. This is obviously like the extreme on one end of it, but even before it gets to a point like this, where that sort of stuff destroys families, and it can happen to any family, even one as affluent as the Reiner family. Like we talked about, he was responsible for some of the most well recognized or cult classic films and TV shows. I was looking at his filmography earlier. It looks like he did The Bear as well, which is a really good show on FX. I think you can watch it on Hulu as well. Just about FX. Cooking. It's a cooking show, but it's like it's a really good show. So yeah, it's a tragedy. you know, in an age where we have activists making entertainment, you know, Rob, and you know, in spite of what you know, in spite of his political beliefs, you know, he was a talented artistical creator, you know, who could create, you know, a good story, which ironically often highlighted the value of conservative values, whether he meant to or not, in spite of his personal beliefs. And yeah, I agree with you. I
Yeah.
don't think anyone should die for because of, you know, whichever side of the aisle they sit on.
No, of course not. And yeah, people are getting back and forth on social media and stuff like that. It's just simple as that. Is it should not happen. And then, but yeah, going into what his their son kind of dealt with is just kind of wild. And you hit the nail on the head, Dave, when you said even people talk about the rich, the rich. You know, it's like we're all people. We all have different opinions and stuff going on, and family that struggle with whatever they're struggling with. I never liked the idea of dividing people up into, you know, class systems, wealth, everything like that. It's so across the board, and we're all humans dealing with the same kind of stuff. So, but yeah, this guy committed heinous crimes, and now once he did that, he needs to get the full extent of the law. What say you,
Yeah.
AK?
Yeah, man. I mean, so I agree with everything that you guys are saying. The thing that I find kind of interesting, right, is the left is going to take every opportunity they can to try and say, you know, here's our just so justification, or saying, like, yeah, but what about whatever? So obviously, after Charlie Kirk was murdered and assassinated, we saw the left and the ghoulish behavior of them celebrating a political assassination. Now, I know some people want to try and like carve it out and be like, well, it's the fact that they celebrated someone's death. To me, it actually wasn't. Like, of course, there are people that were friends with Charlie that were horrified because just that he died. I think though it was because of how he died, and that's to me what was the most ghoulish, is that a guy that was speaking like literally during using the First Amendment to be able to have political debates, he was murdered and assassinated, arguably because that's exactly what he was doing, right? And so to then try and have this, well, do you guys see that online some people are being critical and they're providing qualifiers to being like, while it's horrifying and you know, rest in peace to Rob Reiner and to his wife Michelle. What a terrible situation. Also remember that this dude was a virulent anti-Trump derangement syndrome type of folk, where his whole world was all surrounded by this world that he viewed Trump as like this deranged character, and that it actually affected him in a negative way. And so this is kind of where this conversation has turned, is that President Trump, he truthed, basically saying like, this is a horrible tragedy. And then kind of in the middle of his truth, he put out that he's been a deranged, you know, Trump person. And, you know, it's really sad that that's what he turned into. And then he ends up by saying, rest in peace. And so all of a sudden the media takes that and they say, what vile, vile type of commentary to have. And to me, my pushback was very simple. Rob Reiner clearly hated President Trump. President Trump is a type of person, he's got zero chill. So the fact that he said, you know, this is horrific, which is true, and ended it by saying rest in peace, but then couched that and saying, yeah, the guy also was deranged, I don't think that that's uncalled for. He didn't celebrate Rob Reiner's death. He didn't celebrate the fact that, oh, he got what was coming to him. And so I think this false equivalency that the left is trying to push, and unfortunately, because on the right, we are not a cult. We are very independent. There have been people that have been very critical of President Trump's truth post. I'm of the belief that I think that it's President Trump doing what President Trump does. Rob Reiner had no love for President Trump, and I'm sure that if something happened, unfortunately, you know, if fortunately this didn't happen, but if President Trump would have been assassinated, I'm pretty sure that Rob Reiner would have said some horrifying things about him, far more than President Trump said about him. So I just think that that's part of the conversation. I'm just
Or
curious,
tried to make a film about the shooter, making him look like an American hero or something.
or whatever.
Everyone's
So
gonna have their own take on it, you know.
Yeah.
What
I'm
Trump
just curious,
did,
like, what do you guys think about Trump's statement? Are you guys like in the
I
camp of,
wasn't
like,
a fan of it. I
Fair.
wouldn't say it myself.
Okay.
Everyone has their own way they go about stuff, you know, and that's just who Trump is. Like, you get what you you have.
you
I
get
mean,
you get what you get. Yeah. See, here's the
Yeah.
thing about me personally. I would never say something like that. Okay, but again, President Trump. He is who he is. He's got zero chill. He's shown that he has zero chill. If Rob Reiner would have apologized to him at some point in his life, President Trump would have forgave him. Because that's the one thing about President Trump. If you apologize, no matter how nasty you were to him, he'll accept your apology. But if you never apologize, he's shown that even in
and
death,
you
he's
never
gonna
know
be like,
what's going
"Whatever,
on.
Doc."
You never know what's going on behind the scenes too. It's like we get glimpses of the stuff on
Oh,
social
yeah.
media.
Oh, yeah.
What Rob Reiner said, Mark Ruffalo, all these guys. It's like you get all that stuff, and you never know if that's like the whole truth or not.
And
then
that's
you
the
never
stuff
know
they're comfortable saying in public. You don't know what they're
exactly,
saying
and
Yeah.
you don't know what Trump has heard from him and other people. Like we're just getting one portion of the pie here. So
Yeah, they
people
travel in
can
the same
say
inner circles in entertainment. Yeah.
Yep. People can say whatever they want. I know my values. I know what I'm comfortable saying or not. You got to read the room, but Trump is in his position.
What do you think, David?
For a reason.
I think Trump's a pretty gracious person with the people that seem to have nothing but disdain for his existence. Like you look at I remember there's that clip that went viral of a news reporter informing him that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had passed away. And he just had this moment of like, well, it's a shame because she was an incredible woman, and that woman had nothing nice to say about him. As soon as he stepped his foot into politics as a Republican, and so yeah, I think with Trump, it's always a mixed bag where sometimes you get like a beautiful moment like that, or sometimes you get a post online where it's one of those like it's nice at the front end, it's nice at the back end, and then in the middle it's a little.
It's real messy. And
But
this
I
is my,
think.
yeah.
I think the left flipping out about all of this and going on about, like, I've seen posts, people talking about how there's bullies in the world and Trump's a bully and this and this and this. It seems really rich coming from the side that called us Nazis and a threat to democracy, garbage, deplorables, and all the other nicknames they've come up with for us over the last decade that led to someone being comfortable with the idea of attacking shooting up churches or burning down churches or shooting at Charlie Kirk, shooting at Trump while he was running for office, or even like some of the local Minnesota violence that happened over the summer. It's really rich for them to come out and complain about bullying when they were using language that actively allowed people that are maybe a little mentally unhinged to decide that killing people like you and I is the right answer to solving the problem instead of having open dialogue and debate.
Yeah.
One of the good
that's
things
kinda
is
what I
Rob
see.
On the Charlie Kirk thing, Rob Reiner did come out and say, I'm not gonna, dance on the grave and do all that. He said basically, the RIP. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but yeah, it's just like, it's like, okay, this was a bad thing, and he did say that he watched the video and stuff like that. It's just,
Yeah. So
where's the
here-
off ramp with this stuff?
Right. And so here's kind of my take on it. I personally wouldn't say something like how President Trump did. Me and Trump, we just had different personalities, right? I think that it's also the reason why I'm not a billionaire that's the president of the United States. My demeanor is a little bit different. I have a lot more grace for people in really, really terrible situations. And I actually think it's better to rise above things. But I still love Trump for who he is, because that's who he is, man. That's his personality. He's a fighter. And again, and I tell this to people all the time to understand this, President Trump never punches first, ever. But if you punch him, he will punch you back. And he will keep punching you back until you say, I'm sorry, and you stop punching. Then he'll be like, oh, okay, we're cool now. And so President Trump, this was a personal thing for him. It wasn't larger than that. But I also want to be very clear. Like, if we're going to compare things, we can't compare apples to oranges. When Rob Reiner was showing and expressing humanity and grace towards Charlie Kirk after his assassination, Charlie Kirk never went and attacked Rob Reiner before that. They didn't have any history. So like that is the most decent, lowest bar. And so I think it's also very important. We should not set such low bars. Rob Reiner, of course, shouldn't have besmirched because they've never had a beef. Now, if they had a beef and then he showed this grace, then I think that you can say, look how gracious he was. But they never had beef before because Rob Reiner is just like this, he was this guy, Hollywood liberal guy that believes in every leftist liberal cause that you can imagine. He always painted in the broadest brushstrokes of who Republicans are and what we stand for. So, yeah, no beef there. But again, my whole thing is I wouldn't do what President Trump did, but I also am not going to sit there and say that he shouldn't have done and said what he said, because it was a personal thing. And like we said earlier, who knows how well they interacted with each other? I mean, Trump has been in the entertainment business for like 40 years, man. I guarantee he's ran in the same circles, and he might even feel like a bit of pain because maybe in previous days when he was donating money to Democrats, maybe Rob Reiner and him were cool. And then when he stabbed him in the back and basically said that he's like a fascist and all this stuff, it's like, yo, man, you got zero chill. So that's just my final piece, is like, everyone's going to say their own piece, but don't equivocate and say that President Trump was being vile and nasty, because he wasn't. Do I think that it was the best, most gracious thing to say? No, it wasn't. Would I say it? No, I wouldn't. But I'm not going to impugn President Trump and say that he's a bad dude or a bad actor because of what he had to say. I just disagree with it. So
Yeah.
if you got some
Yep,
final thoughts, Drew.
Nope. Yep. I'll just put a cap on that, saying it's only going to get more heated in this when it comes to entertainment, political things like that, addiction, all these things. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be more to come from this. I really don't want there to be, but man, when we start ramping up this stuff, Mark Ruffalo is another one that's just very vocal about his politics, while he's also gaining a lot of, Hollywood steam and stuff like that. So yeah, I really don't like this. We know what all these actors, directors, producers feel both on and off screen, because it has an impact on culture. So hope for more peaceful times and fun entertainment.
Yeah, and I'll just, the last piece before I kick it over to David for our next topic is, of course, condolences to the family of the Reiners. I think it's a horrible, tragic situation. Obviously, he's been a cultural icon. Like so many of the things that people say, like just like in general, right? Like he produced Spinal Tap, right? He was the director for Spinal Tap. So like Turn It Up to 11, like all of these different things. And Princess Bride, even though I think that was a garbage movie personally, I mean, there's all the, I'm Aldo Montoya, you killed my father, prepare to die, right? There's all these little things that are culturally
How
relevant.
dare you, sir? This might be the first real beef you and I have ever had.
Dude, I can't stand Monty Python. I can't stand it. But yeah, so I'll kick it to you for your final thoughts, and then you can kind of start your new topic, David. But we're going to kind of shift gears and talk about Islamic terrorism, man. But final thoughts on Rob Reiner to you, David, and then feel free to open up your topic.
Oh, yeah. I think it goes back to, I think I heard somebody on the Daily Wire say this once, that art is beautiful when it's true. And, there are certain values, certain things that are true. And if you try to subvert them in entertainment, it comes across as fake. And that's what makes it not entertaining. And I'm gonna counterbalance your opinion. I actually think The Princess Bride is a great film. A lot of masculine stuff in there, a lot of pro men, pro conservative values. Some people will like or dislike this. Ironically, I actually watched this movie over the weekend with my nephew. Again, so it's fresh in my mind. So I have a just different connection to that. I mean, you have a great revenge story. You have a man avenging his father's honor. You have a man, saving the woman he loves from somebody else who's evil. It's just there's a lot of great lessons in there, and ironically, it's got a ton of very conservative values in it. And the girl isn't going from being a farmer's daughter with no military training to suddenly being able to fight against knights or something like that, like you'd see in like a modern film. She'd have saved herself. She would have saved all of them, and so I think that that movie doesn't deserve your hate. I don't know what your deal is, what happened to you, whether you and Fred Savage got beef or something. But anyways, that's my final thoughts on that. Jumping into our next topic, I'm gonna clean up the AM. If you can throw up this video, I do want to give a quick warning. AM, you can also mute it. We don't have to hear the sound. But while he's queuing that up, just a quick warning for the viewers. It will be graphic-ish in nature. It's going to show we're not going to see footage of like the victims or anything. We don't have to play the full clip, but I just want to show like the footage that people captured of these two individuals that opened fire on Bondi Beach. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on them. I want to talk about like the people that were there, the victims, and things like that, and maybe have an open conversation about what our response to that should be, or kind of where everybody is on it. So, AM, if you could play that video. So this is kind of the opening moments when people kind of had their phones fired up, and then they're cutting into like some of the officers going up and securing the area after the shooters had been subdued or taken down. And I think that's good, AM. If you want to throw up the next thing, as I want to highlight this article about the unarmed man, that rushed up and actually attempted to stop the shooting, and he took two bullets, 2 bullet wounds to the arm. And I'm gonna mess this name up probably, but Ahmed El Al Ahmed. And it says here he was a local fruit shop owner. He's recovering in the hospital currently. It sounds like he's gonna make it, but there's some footage out there. It's been viral all over Instagram and TikTok of him just running up, no weapon in hand. The guy's got tactical vest. He's got a rifle in his hands, and he just over the top of his head, puts him in a hold that allows him to basically yank the rifle out of his hands. Just incredible courage. Before we jump to the next clip, reaction from you guys, just thoughts on just the opening. Part of
Yeah,
that
it's
situation.
horrifying. I mean, but this is like the world that we live in right now. This stuff has always gone on throughout all of history. We can't act like it just started in the last couple years. But the thing that is different is we have social media now that we can receive all this information in. We have phones in our pocket that can pull it up wherever we are. We have social media that's going to come to us with a biased tilt on the actual information, and we now can project out as well. So I don't like this whole idea. We're all constantly connected to such horrifying things. Our brains are not wired for that. And then who else is going to see it? Our children, younger people at the same time. And then, yeah, this whole idea that everything is recorded now. Every traffic light has 4 different amazing cameras on it, and we're just capturing all this stuff in real time. I don't know how long we can go about this by taking in this kind of horrific trauma. So that's what caught my idea when I'm just seeing this stuff now, because it's the same stuff that I saw when I was deployed, when we did operations, we did stuff like this, and it's just like, is there an impact of receiving all this stuff? And I think it will be, and we're going to see it down the line with this trauma.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
like kind of the way that I look at it, just to add in kind of a few more pieces to paint a bigger picture. So obviously the shooting takes place, right? And right now, based off of information coming out, it was motivated by Islamic State terrorism. It's a father-son duo, and as of right now, 27 people have been hospitalized. 15 people were murdered in Bondi Beach in Sydney, and ages of victims were from 10 to 87, with one of the victims actually being a Holocaust survivor. And so they believe that this was targeted against Jewish people that were celebrating, I believe, the second day of Hanukkah or the first day of Hanukkah.
It was Hanukkah. Actually, AM, if you want to throw up that graphic, I have the victims list here. It's and you're right, absolutely. One of them was a Holocaust survivor. It's incredible. It's terrible. I will say the one thing I was reading, the fruit stand owner, the guy who stopped the shooter, was also Muslim himself.
Yeah, yeah.
So it kind of goes back to that previous thing we said, where it's not all of them, but
Never.
Muslim
just
on
like with,
Muslim crime.
Yeah, Muslim
essentially,
on
yeah.
Muslim crime. Yeah,
It's
but
just like it's just like with the Christians, right? We have extremists that don't stand
Yeah.
for all of our values, and they take religion and they run with it to commit atrocities. And the people within the Muslim faith have the same problem. But if you could scroll down, AM, the list is kind of further down in the article. The first one they list is Matilda here, and it's 10 years old. And then let me see here. And then we have a rabbi that was one of the people that was killed, and then after him, this is the one that I wanted to kind of highlight. These are the 3 I wanted to highlight. Was Alex Klaitman? I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but yeah, he was a survivor of the Holocaust out of the Ukraine, and just to survive all of that, make it to somewhere like Sydney, Australia, and then have leftist ideology hit that country where open borders are a thing. And this is what I mean when I talk about American border policy, where I'm like, I don't want the people that were responsible for the deaths of people in my family in Peru following me here to finish the job. This is what I mean by that. And this is what we're facing anywhere where we don't have a strong border policy. You know, we're not vetting the people that come in. They don't all want to be here to be our friends. Thoughts from you guys?
Yeah, it's getting so much where it's just like we want. I'm gonna go back to what you. I misinterpreted you earlier, Davis. Like, yeah, there's so many people out there that, yeah, we want, peace and no guns and no this and no violence. Yeah, I think we most nearly everybody want that, of course, but it's not the actual reality that we live in. We have to, and like I mentioned earlier, nowadays, it's a completely different thing. It's not the same world that we were in 20 years ago, 40 years ago when this guy went through. And better or worse, there were worse times, but now we are in just a different time with this technology and the exposure. And so we do need to switch our laws, into something that will actually make sense. And if that means, making sure the right people are in the right countries, and if they're doing the wrong thing, then you go and you get all the justice, law and order, and then so you do the right thing. Like it shouldn't be that complicated. So many people on the left, liberal left Democrats, just want to have this peaceful mind that everything will just be fine, and we need to lax, justice, law and order stuff, and just kind of take it easy. And we're not in that world right now. We need to be more firm. Kind of referencing back to the other topic, if it comes to Insurrection Act or whatever the level of needs to be at, then we need to go about that, because what's going on right now is not working.
Yeah, and here's what I'll add is that, again, looking specifically at this, there's like so many moving parts, but I do think that it is important to remember that God created us as individuals, right? So when someone from a specific identity category does a thing, it obviously has never meant that every person within that ethnic category or religious category is going to be the same way. And I think that when people start to claim that they are all the same, that to me is always a dangerous path. And it's just this group identity mentality. And I think that, again, it is anti-Christian when you start to believe that there are entire groups of people that are always going to be the same. Now, I can understand that if someone specifically subscribes to a dangerous ideology, like, some people feel that all of Islam is evil or bad or whatever. Now, myself as a Christian that grew up in a split religious household, there are plenty of people that I know that practice Islam that are not people that want to harm other people. Like literally my father, okay, gave me an Arab name, and he knew that I was a Christian. He knew that my mother was a Christian. His own mother was a Christian. But that is very common in West Africa and Sierra Leone, is that you actually have split religious households. But I'm saying that, like, if I join a cult, like a specific cult, and it says like, I'm going to go and kill people or something like that, right? Then yes, I can condemn everyone that's in that cult. But I just think that when you start to paint these very broad brushes, you will go into a place where you're going to otherize everyone. I think that's always bad. And again, when I say anti-Christian, it's because God created us as individuals. That's what he did. He didn't create groups of people. He created individuals that can make their own decisions and choices, and people should be held accountable. But I think that the man that stopped that shooting from occurring by unarmed going after the shooter should be commended, but it should also be a reality check to some people that they think that, like, all Muslims are evil or something like that. I think it's absurd. But also, I do think it's important that we do show that there is this Islamic terrorism threat that still exists. I think people forget, like, it's not a thing anymore. And I'm very curious from, like, your two perspective. It doesn't necessarily seem like this was part of like a larger connected cell, but it does clearly seem like this was ideologically motivated by some type of like jihadist caliphate mentality and going after Jewish people. So I'm curious from your two perspective, do you think we're going to start to see more of this? I mean, if you watch anything by,
I think we are going to see more of this, because it's just going to get wild. I'm trying to follow all this like pro-Israel, anti-Israel, all this stuff back and forth. Everything seems so divided right now, where it used to be like, one side and the other side. Now there's like 8 different sides depending on the hour, depending on the news topic, and it's only going to get more divided, and then stuff like this is going to happen. And what's unfortunate is it gets clicks, it gets views, it gets sponsors, and I don't see an off ramp.
Yeah, so Sean Ryan obviously has been talking. Actually, I was just watching video early today when he had, I think her name was like Sarah Smith. She's like former CIA gal, and she's been sounding the alarm. Wrote a book actually about it, that there's like some, large number of Al Qaeda trained operatives that are in the United States, and they call it like Operation Homeland or something like that. So there's like that conversation, and people are just kind of like, is this going to be something that we have to deal with? One of the other consequences of having these open borders is we might have Al Qaeda cells that are sleeper cells running around the United States, getting ready to launch attacks like this. But I'm just curious, like from your perspective too, David, are you concerned about this larger perspective that, again, Sean Ryan and some of these other folks in the space have been talking about, to be prepared? Or are you more of the mindset of like, yeah, be prepared, but like don't let it affect your everyday life where you don't go and just like enjoy the life that you have? But I'm just kind of curious about your perspective on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just want to answer your other question as well.
Sure.
I don't know that it's all like some larger coordinated thing. I think the more things that keep happening, it's starting to certainly seem that way. Like we have the Christian market in, I think it was Ireland, that they, I believe the name has come out now. I believe that was also a Muslim person that crashed into a Christian Christmas market and killed like 9 people, injured like another 15. And there's just been little things like this going on, or the churches being burned down all across Europe, in the UK, and that's becoming a bigger problem. And every time one of these stories breaks within the last, like honestly, it feels like every like 2 hours something new is coming out. It always seems to be it almost seems to be like you get 2 guesses to get the name, and you're probably going to get it right in those 2 guesses, and it's unfortunate because it does make it look a certain way. I don't know that there's necessarily that level of coordination. There could be. As somebody who was on the other side of the world, I mean, they have the capacity to coordinate at that level. Doesn't mean that that's what's happening here, but to your other point, I do think there's a value to vigilance. Because I mean, the people at Bondi Beach weren't thinking that, oh, this is something that could happen to me, and then it did. And that's kind of how I've always operated. Is you can think it's never going to happen to you until the day it does, and if you're not ready, if you don't have, if you haven't trained yourself, if you haven't gone to the range, if you don't own a weapon to protect your family, it's going to happen to you, and you're not going to have a lot less options, right?
And
I
that's
think
the other
about
thing
that.
is like, I don't want it to lead to lack of rights for people that are doing the correct thing. And it's like, okay,
Absolutely.
now we got to ramp up, going to the range, make sure you're proficient on the weapons, where you can bring and not bring them. So it's
That was actually my
unfortunate that
first thought when I saw the footage of the shopkeeper. I was like, if he had been allowed to have a gun, or if he had a gun in his cart, or his fruit stand to protect himself, that situation might have ended completely differently. I mean, he still might have got injured, but I mean, he might not have had to go engage with that guy hand to hand.
Yeah, in Winter Soldier, cultural reference, Nicolas Cage, as Nick Fury was talking about. Here's a story about my grandfather. He was an elevator operator, and they're having this little discussion about, your skin color and jobs that you had to do and stuff like that. But then he bypasses that and turns into, it was a self defense thing, because they kept asking for his money, how much you got there, and then he shows up, open a lunch sack, and it's got a whatever the handgun in his. And then they said that they never messed with his grandpa, or his grandpa again during that time, because it's like, you have to be prepared for evil that's going to come your way when you're trying to do the right thing. And I thought that was just an amazing message. I rewatched that movie recently because I had to remember. I'm like, were these movies as crap as the current ones that are going on? I'm like, nope, they were awesome. I'm rewatching old MCU and Arrow and stuff like that, and it was just so much better.
I
And
actually
they've
just restarted Arrow recently too. That's awesome.
me too. It's been awesome, and
It's cold
yes,
out. You got to do something.
it's leaving Netflix at the end of the month. So, but
So am I.
anyway, you can handle culture, entertainment, and then, excuse me, make good culture and then handle rough topics like race, like religion, like gun rights in a good kind of way where it doesn't take over the whole messaging. But yeah, I don't want to people that are doing the right thing to lose any rights, let alone their safety in this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just
wanna
kind
say
of
we should pray for the families and
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
victims, and pray for the recovery of the man who stopped the shooting or stopped one of the shooters. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say kind of another piece here is that in the totality of what we have happening, whether or not there's going to be some larger coordinated, attack, if let's say again, the Sarah gal is correct and this might happen. This is why to me having faith is important, right? So like I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, and even let's just say that there is going to be some type of horrific attack. I could have a heart attack tomorrow. I could, step out and I'm not paying attention and I look up and, a bald eagle comes and rips my throat out. I mean, something horrifying and completely out of nowhere could happen. So what matters most is making sure, man, that you're right with God. Like as if I guess that happens and I'm gone, at least I'm going to be in paradise and, get to see all my loved ones or whatever. So like, I think it's important to, yes, physically prepare, make sure that you know how to do a tourniquet, make sure that you, have your firearm if you have the ability to legally own one, and be very proficient in your use of carrying that firearm and using that firearm. But also just make sure you're spiritually prepared, man, because at the end of the day, all that stuff can be completely out of your control, and maybe there's nothing you can do to stop it. But you can always make sure to prepare your soul for what the future may hold. So I just want to throw that piece out there too. Just because if you have that mindset and mentality like I do, like I'm prepared, man. I'm prepared to go to paradise if I have to. And so I think that helps me not have as much anxiety. And whether it's from one specific type of line of attack, or just, having some freak accident of a bald eagle ripping my throat out. I'm
What a
prepared,
weird
man.
choice. A bald eagle. That feels anti-American. You could have said
He
like a
just-
crow or a raven or something.
He just, the bald eagle didn't like my patriotism, thought that I was too weak, said, you didn't stand up enough, boy. Actually, so I know that we're on this dark topic, right? And I think, it can sometimes feel, I don't know, more difficult. But David, let me ask, do you got any other points that you want to close up on this topic before we move on to our next one?
No, I mean, that was mainly it. I just wanted to kind of get everybody's kind of roundtable reaction to it. I mean, obviously, it's going to be a talking point culturally for a while, or at least I hope so. I hope that we don't have so many of these incidents happening that it becomes a footnote that we forget in like 2 weeks. Hopefully, there's been enough call to action for difference in policy. I want to say that that's what we'll do. Unfortunately, in Australia, the PM, I'll just mention this briefly, the PM's already blaming conservatives in his country instead of actually blaming, immigration policy, which is wild to me. But, it's Australia. I'm an American. If that's how they want to run their country, I mean, whatever.
Yeah. One more thing from me. Let's just praise the guy. They call him the hero. It's like
Absolutely.
it is not an easy thing to run towards, gunfire or hostility or stuff like that. The easy thing would be to run away, duck and cover, which is fine. People are going to do that. Everyone's different, but it takes a certain person to run towards danger, even when, like David, like you said, he had the guy had the vest, the guy had the gun, and they say that's the best thing is to if everybody ran towards that one person that's making all the bad things happen, that it would lead to less casualties and less
And he
less
did that
harm.
while local law enforcement was frozen in place,
Yep.
which
So
makes
you
what
can't
he did
predict
even
how
more
you're going to
incredible.
react in these
Absolutely.
situations, but like we talked about, just have a plan, go after stuff like that, and do the right thing. I just want to say that real quick, David. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate you guys running through this topic with me. AK, what do we got next?
Yeah, so I know that just because of where we're at on time, I actually want to bring up another topic that we actually didn't really talk about. I'm just going to bring it up, and I'm going to control this myself, Andrew. But kind of since we're already in a place where it's like, oh man, there's like terrible things that have unfortunately been happening in the country and around the world, I think that we should at least try and have somewhat of a conversation about this horrifying news coming out of Brown University. At this point, we currently have a shooter that is still active. And as things are right now, you have this, shooting that happened at Brown College, elite Ivy League campus, latest to grapple with mass shooting as violence erupts at Brown University. So late last night, I believe it was late last night, wasn't it? When the shooting first occurred, there's all this chatter coming out about that there was an active shooter at Brown University. And at first there was news that police had captured someone, and then it turned out that they captured, I guess, the wrong person. And then that changed and came out. But what we do know is that two students were killed, or two people were killed, and we have now learned the names of and identities of both of those students. But here's the thing that's so weird to me is that so far the news that's been reported is that it happened during a class where there was finals taking place. The shooter came in, yelled something, according to the teaching assistant that was running the class, and they don't remember what they yelled. And then they fired, ended up wounding 9 people, and again, killing 2, and then they took off. And as of right now, according to what I'm looking at, they still have not, they don't have a suspect in custody. FBI has recently released some new photos of who they believe the shooter is. The person of interest that they had released that they had captured, they let that person go because apparently it wasn't the right person. But yeah, I'm just kind of scrolling through this. Sorry for all the ads. I need to get like an ad blocker or something like that.
I see you like candlelight concerts as well.
Yeah, apparently, man. But yeah, so basically, I was looking to try and find what the name of the victims are, because I think it's important, like we did earlier, is like show the name of the victims so their families can at least get some of those prayers and thoughts sent their way, because I think prayer does matter. But yeah, let me just kick it over to you, David, while I take a look, and I'm gonna stop sharing the screen so I can actually find it. But yeah, kick it to you first, David. What are your thoughts when you first heard the story about this shooting happening on a college campus?
Yeah, absolutely. So the only quick note I want to make is it looks like it happened on the 13th, which would have been Sunday, I believe.
Yeah, yesterday.
Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Saturday.
Oh, was it Saturday?
Was it
Well,
Yeah, it was
Saturday's
Saturday.
the 13th.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh.
I'm awake. I promise. I'm gonna drink some more of this energy drink and I'll be good. Yeah, I was seeing some of the updates that were coming in. Like they just released that footage. I actually watched some of the footage. It looks like there might be like some logos on a sweater or something that maybe will help them identify the person. It looks like it might be like some footage from a camera, like a house or something, like he was walking through a residential area or something. Yeah, I mean it's too early to tell what the motivations were or what happened, but as far as like what led up to it, but it's yeah, we keeping the family in the prayers, and I agree. One thing I don't want to do with this channel is give people who are doing evil things, more recognition and fame than than they ever deserve to have. And yeah, I like that we're highlighting the victims more. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, so you guys are right. My day was completely wrong. I said yesterday, and you guys are right. It actually happened on Saturday. And according to this article here, they are actually sharing a new photo that was taken of an individual around 2 p.m. on Saturday, hours before the deadly mass shooting at Brown University. And I'm going to try and pull up that photo here. But yeah, man, I mean, this is the thing is like, from your perspective, I'm curious about this, David. Like, some people are always going to use all of these instances of tragedy and say this is why we need to ban guns. But from like your perspective, especially, actually, I'll throw it to both of you. Do you think it's time that we start taking these security concerns serious and start having armed security in all of these schools and these soft targets?
Yeah,
gonna be
I
wild.
think so. Absolutely. I mean, you're charging Ivy League prices for a school. if I'm shelling out that kind of money to get my child an education at your university, I should know that some of that money is going towards security, well-trained, well-disciplined security that is, if nothing else, a deterrent from this sorts of thing. I remember, I don't necessarily always agree with everything Ben Shapiro says, but I do remember him talking about there was a school. It was a Jewish school that like they were gonna shoot at it, but they ended up the shooters ended up going somewhere else because there were armed guards outside of the school, and they went and shot up a different Jewish school that didn't have armed security. And yeah, I think there's something to be said for being a walking deterrent. I mean that's we need that if we're going to keep sending our children to these universities for an education. Unfortunately, a lot of it's indoctrination, but either way, if I'm sending my kid to you, you should have security in place with stuff like this going on 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm
it's
going to throw it
tough.
over to you as well. What are your thoughts? Do you think having security like this is important, or do you think it will matter? I'm just curious, Drew.
Well, it's important for sure. I mean, we have it at courthouses, we have it at, VA building, we have it at all these places where people want it. At high-rise buildings, you go through all the security. So obviously it's possible to put in all this stuff. But at the same time, where does it end? Is every Starbucks going to have armed security? Like, is that going to make the cost go up with everything? They're going to use it to justify, hey, we got to add more. But then at the same point, you're having every single place with armed security, and then you can't travel around with your own weapon for whatever. It's such a strange dynamic that we're in right now. And then who's going to be these private security? Is it going to be because you got to go through all the vetting? You're going to be carrying a weapon and doing all this. We're in a really weird spot right now. And I've done this kind of stuff before. I've been security for the Super Bowl and twice now. Yeah, pretty cool experience. But yeah, you had to get specifically trained and you're working with different stuff. But it's a wild time that we're in right now where some people are awarded. Yeah, if you want to separate out people, who are the people that get private security and who are the people that don't? You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a level of however you want to say it, power, wealth, whatever like that. So and then these people
Here's
that
what
are getting the private security, do they get to make laws? Did you get Nancy Pelosi that say that you can't have a weapon, but they get their 24-hour private security wherever they go?
Yeah. So here's what I think is interesting. So Brown, obviously Ivy League school. They're not hurting for money. They probably have an insane endowment. I'm just saying, like, and I'm sure there's some type of security apparatus, law enforcement apparatus, but shouldn't there be more? And how is it possible that someone could go and do this and then just like they're off in the wind? That's just wild to me. So I just think that the conversation, that the left always has is like ban all guns. We all know that will never, ever, ever work. There's far too many firearms. Even if I thought that it was a good thing to trash the Second Amendment, it's just never going to work. So I think we have to be serious about beefing up security, of having people that are armed. Like, again, if one student in that classroom had a firearm, just one, I think it would have changed the entire dynamic. And so this is to me the conversation that on the right, sometimes it feels a little callous if we say it right now. Cause again, you still have two students that were killed. People are mourning their loss. I think it's important to be able to give people that as well. But ultimately, like, I think we have to be able to have this conversation where we say, yes, these horrible, awful things happened. At the same time, like, let's start making a more proactive stance about what exactly we are going to do as a nation so we can start to reduce some of these things that are occurring. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I do want to specifically identify the names of the victims. So Ella Cook, who, from my understanding, was the chair of the college Republicans at Brown University, and then Muhammad Aziz Amirzakov. And I'm sorry if I just brutalized that last name.
You did better than either of us would have done.
but those are the name of the two victims, and I just wanted to shout out to the people that are part of Ella Cook's college Republican group. Myself personally, that's where I got my start in politics, was college Republicans at the University of Minnesota. Very, very tight knit group. Without the college Republicans, I would argue probably would not be doing this podcast because I probably wouldn't be involved in politics. And At least that's not the trajectory that my life would have taken without the college Republicans. But again, prayers and condolences to the family of Ella Cook and Mohammed Umerzakov. So, yeah, man. I mean, I just wanted to throw that piece out there before we move on to our last topic. Any closing thoughts from either you, David, or you, Drew, about this shooting, and hopefully they can find out who the gunman is, because like that's crazy, right? Let me before I go off on a tangent, it's just wild that they don't have the shooter. But any closing thoughts?
Yeah, just AI is probably going to be more decisive. I think probably if there's. I heard AI is on Tinder figure out people's heights, like if they say a different height. So I think AI is going to be more of a, I guess, deterrent, helpful thing when it comes to identifying these people through a mask, through security cameras. I feel good that it's getting the bad people, but then at the same time, it's also going to be used to, get the people doing the right thing. It's just a double-edged sword. David?
Fair enough. And any closing thoughts, David?
Yeah, I agree. That we should keep the family and the friends of these two individuals in our prayers, and anybody else that may be recovering from injuries. Obviously, these are the two that we know passed away, but I'm sure there are other people that may or may not have been hit, and we'll probably get more information on them as the days go by. But yeah, I'm just hoping it's not a continuation of the trend from the last topic we had, where it's somebody that has a religious motivation or an extremist motivation. Not that would make it any better, but just I'm ready for that to kind of settle down. I know it's not gonna, but it'd be nice if this wasn't the case for this particular situation. And I agree, we need better security. I think I look at how much money Minnesota has wasted with the fraud scandal, and we could have put security, one cop at any public school with the amount of money we've wasted on buying mansions in Somalia and Ferraris and things like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just my very, very final thoughts on this is I think it's important for people just to remember, be vigilant. Whether we're talking about the prior story with the terrorist attacks in Australia, again, these stories, just the FBI announced that they thwarted a New Year's Eve terrorist attack by some like Antifa type of aligned folks that were pro-Palestinian. Just that's what time it is, man. You have to be vigilant. You have to understand that this is the reality that we're living in, and you just got to ask yourself if you have the right mindset, and if you don't, I think it's time to get that mindset correct. So I want to move on to something that is not at all controversial from like a
about killing. We've had 3 topics about killing.
I know, dude.
Yeah, listen,
that's
we're going
just
to
the
Christmas.
news,
We're going into
man.
AmFest. This is depressing.
I know, man. It is absolutely brutal. But I want to change the topic to something that I like the weird and wacky science. Some of the weird and wacky science is a lot more, I would say, hopeful in what I think could happen. It's earlier on an earlier episode we talked about quantum teleportation of light photons, and so I always like to bring up some of these different topics. And so the sun's magnetic field will flip soon. Here's what to expect. So basically this conversation is that you have these giant celestial objects, whether we're talking about the sun, we're talking about our own planet, and these things have magnetic poles, right? And really our magnetic field that protects the earth literally allows us to live. If we did not have a magnetosphere or an atmosphere, we would be bombarded with solar radiation, and life would have never been able to exist. So in that same vein, this story brings up that, hey, on the sun, they have a magnetic field and it's going to flip. So, really, I just wanted to be able to kind of open it up. So I'm just going to explain some of the things in this article. The sun undergoes a reversal every 11 years, which marks an important stage in the solar cycle. The shift in polarity marks a point at which the sun is halfway through its solar maximum. It's the height of its activity, and it begins to shift toward a solar minimum. The point of that is that the sun has this cyclical, it has a cyclical, in which they have these polarity shifts. And when that shift happens, you get increase or decrease solar activity. Now, conversely, here on Earth, have you guys remember like what a month ago we had the Northern Lights and there was all weird colors? You guys remember that?
Yes.
Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah, absolutely.
Did you guys go and get some photos?
Yep.
Yeah,
I got a little bit. Yeah.
I'm going to be the controversial person on this topic. I did not. I was stationed in Alaska for 4.5 years, and I got to see the Northern Lights every single day. So no, it's old hat to me. It's not majestic because I
You and your Northern Lights privilege. Your
your
Aurora
Northern
Borealis privilege.
But here's
first
the
world
reason
problem.
I asked that. Right, the reason I asked that, and this kind of to your point, David, is that it's like old hat. You're used to it. It's not that phenomenal or whatever. But these colors were what was intriguing. And if you kind of dig a little bit deeper, you understand that the sun has been going through these crazy solar cycles, right? And you can stop sharing this article for right now. I'll pull up my own on my end to kind of bring us to the next story, Andrew. But basically, we are in a point where in our, there's a conversation in the history of our Earth of whether or not a similar polar shift could occur. So within kind of that mindset, and when I ask about looking at the Northern Lights, when you see Northern Lights that have these weird color schemes and you see that they're going down to Florida and to Texas, that's usually an indication that something weird is happening that doesn't happen all the time with our sun. And so, what one theory says is that there is a pole reversal that occurs every 6,000 years. There's a guy named Ben Davidson, the news. Interestingly, he dated my step cousin for a while, which was a weird whole other side thing. But he talks about this potentiality. Other people say, no, the polar shift happens where the poles flip or change or shift every 400,000 years. And the last one happened 700,000 years ago. But ultimately, this story, and the reason I wanted to bring it up is that polar shifts and polar flips do occur. And the question is it going to happen on the Earth? And if it happens, some people say we could have a giant ice age that is like literally like a flash freeze that happens all across certain parts of the planet. Some people say that's what happened with the woolly mammoths, and that's why they were found with undigested food in their mouths, throats, and stomach, because they instantaneously flashed. Other people say, you know what, that's a bunch of science foo-for-ah. There's no way to actually try and have these on any type of cycle. So I'm just kind of curious, are you guys, and we'll start with you first, Drew, at all concerned about a giant magnetic pole flip or shift on the Earth that wipes out, our I don't know, all of our technology, and we get bombarded with solar radiation, we die?
No, I just want to figure out how to pay taxes first. So, no, I hear you. No, I mean, it's important to other people. I get that. I'm trying to figure out how to pay for things right now and take care of my family.
So it sounds like
it's an interesting topic.
You don't care. You don't know about pole shifts, man.
I like the idea that it's not allegedly man-made, so that I'm not having a direct impact on this. So
I agree.
Fair.
We've all seen Geostorm, unfortunately.
Geostorm.
Terrible movie, terrible premise.
That's
that is something
bad.
I could see the government trying to do is let's control the weather or how the globe works.
So for you, David, you're not really concerned about having a pole shift more than, let's say, terrorist attacks?
Well, I look at how's the best way to say this? I look at what's the most immediate threat, if you will. What's the most immediate concern? And I would say, the safety in public spaces, whether we're at the Mall of America or a Christmas market or going to see, the Christmas trains or the lights or whatever. That's probably a little more of an immediate concern for me versus, the potential of the sun burning us all or freezing us all or something in like a decade or two. That being said, we live in Minnesota, so I mean we experience an ice age every couple of months here. So I feel like if anybody was going to make it, it'd be us Northerners.
Yeah, it's possible. So I just want to pull up one other story here. And this just, again, just adding some of the science to it. It says that a certain swarm reveals that there's a growing weak spot in the Earth's magnetic field. And again, this is not like crazy science. Our magnetic field has weak spots in it. And so whenever there is a giant solar flare, or if there is this pole flip that happens on the sun and it increases the sun's activity and it blasts that weak spot, we actually could have things happen that actually do affect our everyday life, where our internet service could go down, cell phone towers could go down. And what ends up happening is in these weak spots, if you get enough concentration, when you had the northern lights, some people were saying that if the intensity would have increased for like another 5 minutes, it would have like knocked out basically like all of our grids that are at all vulnerable for like days, if not a few weeks, until we can flip out all these parts. So I just want to throw, I'm not necessarily subscribed to the idea that we are going to have this, basically earth-ending catastrophic event of a pole reversal where North and South Pole flip, and then we have flash freezes, or it flips 90 degrees and all of a sudden North Pole is in the middle of, we'll call it St. Louis, Missouri. Let's say that's where the pole ends up being north and south. I don't think that that's necessarily going to happen, but I do think that, again, of all of these conversations we've had about being prepared, you should at least understand, if this were to happen, if we suddenly lost the ability to have internet and cell phone for 2 weeks while they're figuring out how to get the grid back up, or you didn't have energy, you should probably have a backup plan. Or again, just be like righteous with yourself, not righteous with yourself, but be prepared for righteous damnation of the earth ending, if that's where we're going to be. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It's something that I would love to have further conversations on. Maybe we can actually have a guest on that will talk about what the potentiality of this are going to be. But just some final thoughts for either one of you on pole shifts and
I'll add it to my
So what
list.
So what I hear is, worst case scenario, we're going to end up in the 90s if this happens, and we'll be back to the age before.
Bring it
the
on.
flip phone.
Yep.
I'm good with that.
Sorry. I'm pro pole
Britney
shift
Spears
now.
will be back on tour. In Sync will be back to good
Yep,
films.
let's go
like
to
The Mask of
analog.
Zorro. I'm good with it.
Let the
I'm
poles
down.
fall where they
Video
may.
games. Yeah, disc
Yep.
video games again.
Listen, you guys are
PS2.
selling me more and more by the minute that maybe
Yeah, let
we
it
should be
happen.
pro pole shift. Send us
Yep.
back to the 90s, man.
That's where I'm at.
I'm about to start taking
Bring it
pictures
back.
of the Northern Lights again, just because
All right,
you've brought me
we-
around on this topic.
Let's wrap up. Let's wrap up.
Absolutely. I guess this was episode 7, and as we continue to grow the
6.
show,
Should be 6,
sorry,
if I'm
episode
counting right.
6. That's right, episode 6. And so as we continue to grow, we encourage people to, again, throw in chats in the conversation, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. Throw in comments, chats. Eventually we'll get to a point where we have super chats, and we'll try and have that conversation added to our dialogue back and forth as we go throughout the episode. Make sure that you guys go and follow us where we are currently at. So Culture Warrior Unchained, that's the name of our podcast. You can follow us on X at CW Unchained. We don't really have a lot of activity there, but make sure that you follow each and every one of us. So David, where can people find you? What are you going to be up to in the next week or so until our next episode?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me at David Webster on Facebook and Instagram. On X, I'm 50 Webster, and that's kind of the variation that I use everywhere that I go. And as for what's going on this week, the big thing is the three of us are going to be down at AmFest, and we're going to figure out a live stream and just kind of saying hi to everybody from down there, even if it's only for a couple of minutes. And I'm excited to spend a weekend with you guys. And we don't get a ton of in-person time just with the nature of where we live, so that'll be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. And if any of you are going to be down at AmFest, we'd love for you to come up, say hi, and introduce yourselves, let us know what you think of the show.
Love it. And what about you, Drew? Where
Yep.
can people find you? Where people follow you? And what do you got planned
Absolutely.
here?
At Drew Outstanding on X. Yeah, reach out to us on X on either our individual ones or our main channel. X account and let us know if you're going to be in Phoenix at AmFest. We can connect, figure out a good way to do that. And yeah, it should be a good time. I got press passes for us, so we should be able to get some good footage and have a pretty good time. Also, find me for my adaptive sports on YouTube, Operation Outstanding Infield. I'm working on some sit-down skiing and going to get some good footage going.
And you can follow me on TikTok at AK Kamara. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and on X at Real AK Kamara. That's where I post all of my awesome, spicy, absurd things that come out of my brain skull as I'm sitting and thinking about life. But more importantly, make sure to follow the YouTube channel at Culture Warriors Unchained, youtube.com/at Culture Warriors Unchained. Follow us on X at CW Unchained. On Facebook, you can find us Culture Warriors Unchained. And until next time, be cool and don't let any eagles rip your throat out.